You walk over to Laddie and discover that she is sound asleep. Life in the grotto is not one of creature comforts. Rather, a fair few inconveniences. You've tried several times to bring Laddie to the village, but she was adamantly opposed on every occasion. You sometimes catch glimpses of her face while she sleeps. Always it is contorted in anguish, as though she is in the throes of a terrible nightmare. You notice a bulky book lying open next to Laddie. Filled with carefully drawn words and images. It seems to be some kind of picture book that Laddie made herself. You know, I confess, I am a bit curious. Unable to overcome your curiosity, you decide to take a look at the picture book. Beside evocative images of deep forests and towering mountain ranges, Laddie has written a story patterned after the Maiden's myth. The picture book story is set in a small village replete with nature. The village enjoys the promise of peace and tranquility, thanks to the young woman born to be the Maiden. The Maiden goes before the altar to perform a ritual, which invokes the power of a great spirit to protect the village. You look over the artwork. a spitting recreation of the altar you saw in the spire, and think back on the mysterious voice. The voice claimed it was a spirit, and you're certain it spoke Laddie's name. You were so caught up in the thoughts racing through your head that you failed to notice Laddie had awakened. Laddie seems embarrassed that you've seen her book. Tears prick the corners of her eyes. If Laddie were indeed the Maiden, it would be no exaggeration to call her the very light of hope, a protective force that could save the island from its encroaching ruin. With faint expectation tightening your chest, you consider taking her to the altar in the spire. You've given Laddie some of the fruit you brought back. She dreamily stuffs some of it into her mouth. Your stomach rumbles as you watch her, and together, the two of you enjoy a light meal. Fight him off. You come across an open-air stall. A sign reads, "Huge sale." As you peer into the stall, a merchant whirls around to greet you. The merchant says they're having a fire sale. Everything must go. The merchant says it's time to move on and begins closing up his stall. You cannot shop here anymore. You take Laddie with you and return to the spire. As you approach the entrance of the spire, the staff that Laddie clutches close begins to emit a faint light. Seeing the mysterious light, you are convinced Laddie has a deep connection to the spire. Her expression uneasy, Laddie takes hold of your sleeve with a tentative touch. You stand before the altar once more, bathed in an air of mysticism. The light emitting from Laddie's staff intensifies, as if indicating its destination. In response to the enigmatic voice, Laddie's staff exudes a dazzling light. A spirit appears right before your eyes. Well, maybe it's a spirit? It's some kind of strange stuffed animal. The stuffed toy seems to be affecting a voice of considerable gravitas and choking itself in the process. This creature is called Lack. Though you cannot be certain it speaks the truth, it claims to be a spirit. You approach, hoping to ask about the Maiden, but with blinding speed, Lack zooms behind Laddie, putting her between you as a shield. "You're the one from before," Lack says, quaking. It would appear that you're mistaking the creature for a monster, and doggedly chasing after it has made it rather afraid of you. You hold out an offer of reconciliation, and Lack takes it and immediately starts munching away. Between you're not really sure if the make good worked out. But in any event, Lack looks willing to listen to you now. You ask about the maiden once more, and Lack begins to talk a lot. It seems to enjoy doing so. Just as the maiden's myth handed down amongst the denizens of the island suggests, it explains, Laddie was indeed born to be the maiden here. However, she was unable to take up her role. This has caused no small amount of distress over the island's inevitable destiny to sink beneath the raging waves. Lack concludes with a proposal. How's about you go and meet with the other maidens and fetch the maiden's relics? As you had hoped, Laddie appears to be the key to the island's salvation. This island is not the only one home to a spirit. There are islands throughout this archipelago, and upon each dwells one of the 4 maidens who govern their own spirit. The self-proclaimed spirit explains that if you bring the maiden's relics that each of these maidens possess back to this spire, Laddie will be able to become a maiden herself. Laddie shows the staff in her hand, wearing an expression that seems to say, "This is a maiden's relic." If Laddie becomes a maiden and performs the maiden's ritual at the altar, the island can be saved. You ask, should we kill the maidens and steal the relics? Laddie shakes her head rapidly, as if to insist that you definitely should not do that. As Lack explains, each maiden has an attendant, an escort, and protector. This would make it difficult to take the relics by brute force. The world-changing immensity of what you have just learned echoes in your mind. It takes you a little while to fully digest it. But it does just so happen you've been readying a seaworthy vessel for your own purposes. You accept Lack's proposal to help Laddie become a maiden. So, you want me to poof you back to the entrance? You decide to make for the spire's exit. And fight. Show 'em what you got. Don't hold back. A bizarre rock appeared. It seems primed to explode. The bizarre rock transformed into a treasure rock. Fight him off. Accompanied by your new allies, you make to enter the village. But Laddie seems to find something about this idea disagreeable and clings to a tree nearby, refusing to budge. "Oh, I got this one," says Lack, evidently with some kind of plan in mind. The fluffy creature begins to chant a sort of mysterious spell. Suddenly, Laddie's face is transformed into that of an odd old man's. Laddie touches her transformed visage and then gives a thumbs up, perhaps as if to say, "Good job. You are a god." But Laddie looks sideways at you as she walks into the village, her identity now safely hidden. This is your home. A desk pushed up near the wall is adorned with an unfurled map and a scattering of books. The navigation map is of your own design and depicts the various islands in this region of the sea. It contains information on the maidens of those nearby islands, culled meticulously from books and the tales of passing travelers. Before all of this, you had found yourself unable to merely sit and watch the village's decline, and so planned a voyage to seek aid from the maidens of the other islands. After popping into the back room, you emerge with a carefully polished ship's wheel and present it to your companions. It is the final piece of the ship you restored at the grotto. With it, you will finally be able to set sail on the voyage you have dreamed of for so long. You have made ready for the voyage, but before you set sail, you decide to stop in at the mayor's to say your farewells. Grieth's eyes fall over the unfamiliar face behind you. And who do we have here? At your quick response, Grieth blinks a few times in confusion. His eyes dart back and forth between the pair of you, as though his brain is putting together the pieces of a complex puzzle. At length, he offers a deep nod. You'll need to clear up the misunderstanding later. Changing the subject, you explain to the mayor that you'll be leaving the village for a little while on a voyage to save the island. You felt sure that the mayor, with his love of the village, would see you off with a smile. And yet the moment you explain that you found a maiden who can save the island, his attitude changes like the fickle sea winds, and he voices opposition to your journey. This island is destined to meet its end, he says. You can practically sense him digging his feet in. You cannot fathom why he, the mayor of the village, would believe something like that. Though each of you hold the island in your hearts, you cannot reconcile the difference of opinion. Like lovers going their separate ways after an acrimonious spat, it looks as though you will be setting out on bad terms. You believe that your desire to save the island will prove to be the right perspective. Don't hold back. Magnificent. Your ship. Your trusted companion. Once a mere wrecked husk that you labored to bring back to life with months of sweat and toil. You climb up to the stern, and with every bit of care you can muster, you attach the wheel. The final stroke upon the canvas. At last, your ship is finished. The vessel's design is patterned after a great whale. There are a number of mismatched parts, but that particular quirk only makes you love it all the more. As you look over your handiwork, you realize that your companion on this upcoming journey will need a name. What would a fitting name be, you ponder? Love and Friendship Island's Savior pops into your head as a potential name. You decide to use your mental eraser to excise that particular idea. Despite your confidence that you could do most things with at least some degree of skill, it looks like you lack a knack for nomenclature. Laddie tears a page from her book and then scribbles a name down on it. In her small handwriting is written, The Bon Vent. According to Lack, the words are a kind of prayer in the language of the spirits for safe passage when bidding one farewell on a long journey. A farewell said before long journeys. The words could make a fitting appellation for your ship. You're unsure of just how much you ought to trust Lack or his skill with words. But nonetheless, decide together. You load up the Bon Vent with the necessary provisions. Preparations for your departure are now finished. You throw your hands upon the ship's wheel and shout, "Weigh anchor!" with gusto. Your voyage has begun. Though your ship had long since forgotten the taste of seawater, it nonetheless cuts through the waves like a fillet knife through fresh fish. It is your first sea voyage. Laddie's eyes glitter as she looks out at the horizon, stretching ever onward over the endless blue expanse. She opens up your homemade navigation map, checking the locations of the islands where the other maidens live. On the island to the south of here lives a beauteous maiden garbed in azure robes, as though the sky itself is wrapped around her. After closing up the map, you grasp the wheel like a familiar old friend and tell the ship where you'd like to go. You now have free rein to sail across the sea as you see fit. New tales await you when you put into port on an island where a maiden dwells. You spot something blown into the sky from a whale's spout. It looks like it might fall this way, but it's hard to make out with the sun behind it. You hurriedly draw your sword and strike the falling object. Alas, it appears what you struck may have been some item or gear that could have helped you on your journey. It hits the sea with a plunk and sinks beneath the waves. Ahoy, matey! And fight! You discover a shipwreck. You climb aboard and begin searching for anything useful. When you return to your vessel, the shipwreck sinks silently into the sea. You hurriedly draw your sword and strike the falling object. It turns out it was a monster. The blow you struck has it disoriented. It immediately dives back into the sea and swims away, leaving behind a scattering of coins. Ah, the great open sea. Whirlpools are a common occurrence in this area of the sea. It doesn't seem like your ship is capable of crossing them. Oh, yeah, you can't cross. Hope you win. Excellent. You discover a shipwreck. You climb aboard and begin searching for anything useful. When you return to your vessel, the shipwreck sinks silently into the sea. I don't know what it is, but you hurriedly draw your sword and strike the falling object. It turns out it was a fish, but now it's two. Both halves hit the water and disappear below the waves. Laddie eagerly eyes the fishing rod on the boat. Up for some fishing, you ask? Laddie gives a hesitant nod. Except, it turns out she's never fished before. You show her how to hold the rod, and she casts the line into the water. Almost instantly, the rod begins to bend. You'd better tell her when to pull up. The rod bends sharply. Whatever she has, it's resisting with all its might. Laddie panics and yanks the rod toward her. The line snaps and goes slack. Alas, you pat her back reassuringly. Sometimes that's just how it goes. You approach the remains of a ship floating in the waves and carefully steer your own vessel so as not to collide with the wreckage. As you do, Laddie pulls something up out of the water. Most of the ink is smeared by seawater, but one page is still legible. On that same page, you see a map detailing where the shipwreck can be found. Deciding that shipwrecked treasure may be worth finding, you slip the voyage log into your bag. From the south, a small vessel pulls up beside yours. The fisherman aboard is trembling and pale. You ask the fisherman if he's all right, and he stammers out 2 words. Ghost ship. He claims he was fishing west of the South Isle when an eerie vessel suddenly emerged from the fog. He then hightailed it out of there without looking back. Though you're skeptical, Laddie quietly writes down details of the man's story. Good work. Fight him off. Oh, excuse me. You can't go into an island while you're... You cross the sea and arrive at the South Isle. On the South Isle, you will hear the tale of a maiden in blue. Very well then. Prepare to go ashore. Bright rays of sunlight beam down onto the warm South Isle. Something about the place reminds you of the refreshing cool of the ocean. After weighing anchor and docking your ship at the pier, you go ashore. Utterly exhausted from hours at the helm, you stretch your legs for a moment, then open up your map. Once you have your heading, you and the others make for the village of Cofton in the south. Okay, now let's go. This must be a stela of the Isle's guardian spirit. fight him off. Hope you win. You spy a parcel on the roadside. As you pick it up, you are enveloped in a wonderful aroma. Inspecting the parcel, you read its intended destination was Coveton. You know not its contents, but will you complete its delivery? You decide to deliver it on your way and tuck the parcel into your bag. A monster appears. Its nose is twitching as it sniffs the air, its gaze fixed on your bag. The aroma from the parcel you're carrying must have drawn it near. You'll have no choice but to fight it off. And fight. You should deliver the parcel to Covden before it draws any other monsters. And fight! Magnificent. Magnificent. can see what looks like a chest within the shadows on the opposite bank. Unfortunately, you can't cross over with the water raging as it is. Congrats. You come across a large boulder. You aren't sure where it fell from, but some of it is submerged in the waterway and is obstructing the water's flow. You and Laddie push the boulder with all your might, but it doesn't even budge. You'll need help if you're going to move this thing. Perhaps you should come back after recruiting a few more allies to your cause. Don't hold back. So hot, you grumble, as you use your shirt to fan yourself. Wondering how Laddie is holding up, you turn and see her squeezing a blue ball of fluff tightly. She begins to rub her cheek against it. From the elated look in her eyes, you can only guess how cooling it must feel. But the sight sends shivers down your spine. Laddie, that's a monster, you shout, readying your weapon. Fortune favors the bold. The village floats in the center of a cove. The gentle lapping of waves fills the air. Coveton seems like a peaceful place, far removed. As you enter the village, you are greeted by an unusual sight. A paper doll flitters about like a bird above a man's hand. The man sees your curious gazes and explains that he animates it with a magic charm. He claims that all the villagers use such spells to enrich their lives. At your straightforward question, the man appears to be at a loss for words. Now, where could she be? He murmurs. Though the maiden isn't here now, you know for certain that one lives in the village. You thank the man, then resume your search for the maiden. The village gets so lively when the maiden is here, the man mutters, his brow furrowed with worry. The old woman stares intently into a crystal ball. "Not ready to show me, are you?" she mumbles at it. She tells you she first used magic when she divined who she would marry, nigh on 50 years ago. You can't help but admire her dedication to the craft. Having arrived in Coveton, a woman asks you, "Are you the postman?" You shake your head no. She says she's been waiting forever at the village entrance for a delivery. Her eyes light up when you show her the parcel you picked up. "That's what I've been waiting for." It seems the parcel contained an exotic perfume she ordered. But the scent of this perfume attracts monsters. Is it really safe to hand it over to her? You hand her the parcel, explaining how dangerous this perfume is. But she is too overjoyed to notice your words. While dancing a jig in celebration of her long-awaited perfume, she hands you a gratuity for carrying it all this way. The entrance to the shrine is resplendent with seashells. The maiden must make a hobby of collecting them. The woman sighs. That maiden's gone gallivanting again today. Despite being tasked with protecting the village, it seems she has quite the infamous reputation. The man tells you the village may be renowned for its magic charms, but the tasty fish caught here aren't half bad either. Face contorted in concentration, the young boy deftly folds a piece of paper into the shape of a bird. You ask him about the maiden. "I saw her at the Maiden Shrine," he says, as he tosses the paper bird into the air. Wonder of wonders, the paper bird flaps its wings and flies about, showing you where the Maiden Shrine is. At the heart of the shrine, you see a young woman and man discussing something in earnest. woman's name is Fila. She is, without a doubt, the maiden shouldering the Isle's fate. The man's name is Hyde. He is the maiden's wise attendant. Excuse me. I need to speak with the maiden, you say, interjecting yourself into their conversation. Fila whirls to you and asks, which do you think is cuter? Though you're baffled by the sudden and unrelated question, she doesn't miss a beat and shows you a seashell in each of her hands. Caught in the moment, you mumble an unexpected answer beneath your breath. You quickly realize your mistake and look around when... Oh my, Fila remarks bashfully. Hyde simply gives a huh in response. Laddie looks off into the distance, her lips pursed as if whistling, though no sound comes out. Lack, annoyed for some reason, seems on the verge of rebuking you. Apparently, the maiden and her attendant had wagered on which shell was cuter. You had heard about the Azure Maiden from the villagers, but now you see for yourself that she's quite the free-spirited woman. You explain to them why you've come, and ask if Fila will lend you her maiden's relic. Despite knowing the circumstances, Hyde tells you that things just aren't that simple. You take a deep breath and prepare to persuade them when... I'll let you borrow it if you help me find the pirate's treasure, Fila says. She explains that there are rumors of pirate treasure hidden within the crystal cave southeast of the village. Pirates, you murmur. You think about it for a moment, but with little other choice, you agree to help. You never change, sighs Hyde. But Fila pays him no mind as she prepares to embark on the adventure. The innkeeper's eyes light up in surprise and delight. Well, well, well. To what do I owe the honor of a visit from the son of the Fortune Tellers Alliance chairman, she asks. She clearly has you confused with someone else. But on the plus side, she is extremely happy to see you. So happy, in fact, she waives the fee for your room. The party leaves the inn feeling rested. This is the game parlor. Come play cards, the boy at reception calls. Not bad, the boy praises you, proffering a gift in commemoration of your first win. Here to stay the night? The innkeeper asks the moment you set foot in the inn. All right, things have taken a very lively turn, haven't they? The Crystal Cave teems with the stones that give it its name. They say the intermittent echo of water droplets is the sound of more crystals forming. Your party and Fila have become fast friends on the road to the cave. Though Laddie seems somewhat nervous to finally have a female friend her age, she looks happy nonetheless. The loose-lipped Fila tells you all sorts of details about her life, including the fact that she and Hyde are lovers. Hyde seems on edge about her blasé divulgences. You give him a pat on the shoulder, quietly sympathizing with him. The five of you rally together, then push, and... the boulder sinks into the water, stopping its flow completely. It looks like you have a new path to tread now. Fila hugs Hyde in her excitement. He blushes in embarrassment and reminds her that others are watching. At their public display of affection, Laddie covers her face with her hands, but peeks at them through her fingers. Magnificent. Show 'em what you got. Show 'em what you got. And fight. And fight. hold back. You discover a chest in the cavern depths. Your allies rummage through its contents, but don't find anything resembling pirate treasure. Just as you're about to open the chest, Fila interjects. I didn't tell you, but they say the treasure is protected by the pirate's ghost, she admits with a tremble in her voice. Laddie's face goes pale, and she squeezes Lack in her arms. The poor thing looks like it's in pain. I'm just kidding, Fila says cheerfully. But then... Who goes there? A voice echoes through the cavern. My treasure. Mine. You sense a dangerous aura in the shadow of the chest and immediately prepare for battle. And fight. Magnificent. Two fight as one. After the battle, you finally reach what looks to be pirate treasure. Your hearts race in anticipation as you open the chest to find hundreds of colorful seashells filling it to the brim. The room falls quiet as everyone stares at the chest with abject dejection, realizing the stories were no more than rumor. After a long moment of sulking, you feel Laddie tug on your sleeve. She points to the rocky wall behind the chest. Upon closer inspection, you realize that there's a crevice just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Magnificent. A droplet of water falls. Once the ripples upon the surface still, it feels as though time stops. A beautiful underground lake, its waters glimmering like crystal, stretches out before you in the cave's depths. Your collective breaths are taken away as you gaze upon the dazzling sight. The lake's light reflects in Fila's eyes, and she gently takes Hyde's hand in hers. "I'm so happy we can see this together," she whispers. Though you had come to the cave in search of treasure, you found something far more precious. You return to Coveton, basking in the afterglow of such a marvelous discovery. You arrive back at Coveton safe and sound. Ta-da, Fila says suddenly, pulling a crystal out of her pocket. Apparently, she took it from the cave so that Hyde could make them matching couples charms. With a sigh, her attendant agrees and says he will need to borrow the proper tools from the accessory shop. An air of gloom hangs over one corner of the village. It would seem someone has died. Asking a nearby fellow what happened, He explains a woman was attacked and killed by monsters outside the village. Talk is, the woman was wearing perfume from a foreign land that drew the monsters to her. They only discovered it after the fact, but that perfume was actually some sort of juju expressly for attracting monsters. You recall the woman to whom you delivered the parcel you picked up. I should have better warned her, you think regrettably. Laddie gently places a hand to your back. You say a prayer for the woman's repose and quietly take your leave. Hyde asks you to wait outside while he enters the shop. Fila strikes up a conversation with Laddie while awaiting the other's return. The endless stream of words makes you wonder when the maiden has time to breathe. All Fila seems to talk about is Hyde. Nevertheless, she seems to have found an eager listener in Laddie, who nods with an elated smile. Hyde returns, completed couples charms in hand. The crystal charms look as impressive as any you would find in a shop. But Hyde's expression is grim. Apparently, he isn't as impressed by his handiwork as the rest of you. Fila takes one of the charms with a forlorn smile. I'll wear it to the maiden's ritual, she says quietly. On second thought, you decide those words are better left unsaid. Being in the presence of the Azure Maiden has you out of sorts. Fila explains that she'll be conducting the Maiden's ritual soon. You wonder if it's all right for them to be gallivanting around like this, considering how important the ritual is to protecting the island. As promised, I'll let you borrow the relic, Fila says, changing the subject. But it's far too important for me to just hand it over to you. So, we're coming with, she smiles. Though it's obvious she's just looking to have some fun, you have no choice but to accept the new term. With the Maiden's relic finally secured, you and your unexpected new allies make for the spire. Fila exclaims in excitement as she lays her eyes upon your vessel. How adorable! You grin, knowing full well that it is, and prepare for departure. The Bizarre Rock transformed into a Fear Rock. The only way out of this fight is through it. Magnificent. You discover a shipwreck. You climb aboard and begin searching for anything useful, as if remembering something. Could this be the ghost ship the fisherman told you about? Laddie is terrified, but puts on a brave front. You worry about her, but decide to continue your search when an apparition appears. Perhaps bearing a grudge against the living, it rushes at you. Show 'em what you got. Oh hey, don't worry. Their coffin card being down doesn't mean that character is actually dead. It looks like your adventure ends here. You grin, knowing full well that it is, and prepare for departure. I don't know what it is, but there's just some... You open your arms wide, and into them falls a fish. It's a fat, tasty-looking fish. Your companion's stomachs growl at the sight of it. Recalling it's about time to eat, you deftly prepare it and share a friendly meal. You steer the boat out of the falling object's trajectory. It hits the water and sinks below the waves. Ah, the great open sea! And fight. You open your arms wide to catch some sort of item. You gladly accept it as a gift from heaven. Ahoy, matey! Show 'em what you got. You catch Laddie stealing glances at the fishing rod on the boat. Perhaps she'd like another shot at glory. With your guidance, she clumsily, minutes pass. Suddenly, the rod jerks toward the water. Laddie, panic in her eyes, looks to you for help. The rod bends and fits and starts. You're sure she's got something. Laddie, overcome, you look at the fish, beaming with pride. You know what Laddie will be having for supper this evening.